Hello, and welcome to the Once Again podcast. We are your hosts, Ashley and Jason. In this episode, we will be looking at the 1989 film, Batman. In this series, we won't be doing a deep analysis of the film, or giving a bunch of behind-the-scenes facts, but rather giving our impressions of the overall film and giving a score to the film. So take a nice acid bath, vandalize some classic art while listening to Prince music, and most importantly, be sure to do a lot of pull-up reps at the gym in case some billionaire vigilante decides to wrap a stone gargoyle around your leg one day while you're hanging from a helicopter ladder. And enjoy this episode.
That was highly specific.
Listen, I wrote that because I remember this movie very well, and I wrote that little jokey intro beforehand. But also, if the Joker, or if Jack Napier did pull-up reps at the gym, he wouldn't have fallen in the acid in the first place. So I'm just saying,
That's true.
Get those reps in. It's what's best for everybody. Also, I guess I should address that we're recording this amidst Canada's toxic war against America.
So if there's extra coughing, there's extra coughing.
Yeah, we apologize, folks. The next couple episodes might be a little rough on the airs.
Blame Canada.
Blame Canada. Agreed. But so, Batman is a 1989 superhero film based on the DC Comics character of the same name, created by Bob Kane and Bill Finger. It is the first installment of Warner Brothers' initial Batman film series. The film takes place early in the title character's war on crime and depicts his conflict with his arch-enemy, the Joker. The tone and themes of the film were partially influenced by Alan Moore and Brian Boland's 1989 graphic novel The Killing Joke and Frank Miller's 1986 four-issue miniseries The Dark Knight Returns. The film primarily adapts and diverts from the Red Hood origin story for the Joker, having Batman inadvertently cause gangster Jack Napier to fall into excess chemical acid, triggering his transformation into the psychotic Joker. Filming took place at Pinewood Studios from October 1988 to January of 1989. The budget escalated from $30 million to $48 million, while the 1988 Writers Guild of America strike forced screenwriter Sam Hamm to drop out. Also a very timely topic to be covering this for. Warren Sackreen did rewrites, with additional uncredited drafts done by Charles McCone and Jonathan Gems. Batman was both critically and financially successful, earning over $400 million in the box office totals. Critics and audiences particularly praised Nicholson and Keaton's performances, Burton's direction, the production design, and Elfman's score. It was the fifth highest-grossing movie in film history at the time of its release. The film received several Saturn Award nominations and a Golden Globe nomination for Nicholson's performance, and won the Academy Award for Best Art Direction. It also led to the development of the equally successful Batman the Animated Series, which in turn began the DC animated universe of spin-off media, and has influenced Hollywood's modern marketing and development techniques of the superhero film genre. I always put a D in there, and I don't know why. It's just one of those words. The film was followed by three sequels: Batman Returns in 1992, with both Burton and Keaton returning; Batman Forever in 1995, which featured Val Kilmer in the lead role; and Batman and Robin in 1997, which featured George Clooney in the title. The budget for the movie was $48 million, or $117.4 million in 2023, and the box office was $411.6 million, or roughly $1,007 million in 2023. Batman premiered on June 19th, 1989 in Westwood, Los Angeles. Batman grossed $2.2 million in late-night previews on June 22nd, 1989, on 1,215 screens, and grossed $40.49 million in 2,194 theaters during its opening weekend. This broke the opening weekend records held by Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, which had a 4-day Memorial Weekend gross, and Ghostbusters 2, which had a 3-day weekend the previous weekend. The film also set a record for second weekend gross with $30 million, also the second biggest 3-day weekend of all time, and became the fastest film to earn $100 million, reaching it in 11 days, 10 days plus late-night previews. The film closed on December 14th, 1989, with a final gross of $251.2 million in North America and $160.15 million internationally, totaling the aforementioned $411.35 million. It was the highest-grossing film based on a DC comic book until 2008's The Dark Knight. Furthermore, Batman held the record for being the highest-grossing superhero film of all time until it was taken by Spider-Man in 2002. The film's gross is the 66th highest ever in North American ranks. Although Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade made more money worldwide in 1989, Batman was able to beat The Last Crusade in North America and made a further $150 million in home video sales. Box Office Mojo estimates that the film sold more than 60 million tickets in the U.S. And there's Producer Pumpkin adding his notes. Despite the film's box office, over $400 million against the budget of no more than $48 million, Warner Brothers claimed it ended up losing $35.8 million and was not likely to ever show a profit, which has been attributed to a case of Hollywood accounting. They like to, move the figures around so that they don't have to pay taxes.
Yep.
Batman was criticized by some for being too dark, but nonetheless received a generally positive response from critics. On review aggregator Rotten Tomatoes, the film holds an approval rating of 73% based on 77 reviews, with an average score of 6.7 out of 10. Many observed that Burton was more interested in the Joker and the art and set production design than Batman or anything else in terms of characterization and screen time. Comic book fans reacted negatively over the Joker murdering Thomas and Martha Wayne. In the comic book, Joe Chill is responsible. Writer Sam Hamm said that it was Burton's idea to have Joker murder Wayne's parents. The writer's strike was, quote, "The writer's strike was going on, and Tim had other writers do that. I also hold innocent to Alfred letting Vicki Vale in the Batcave. Fans were ticked off at that, and I agree. That would have been Alfred's last day of employment at Wayne Manor," Hamm said. The songs written by Prince were criticized for being too out of place. While Burton has stated that he had no problem with the Prince songs, he was less than enthusiastic with their use in the film. On the film, Burton remarked, "I like parts of it, but the whole movie is mainly boring to me. It's okay, but it was more of a cultural phenomenon than a great movie."
That's so fascinating.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, most of people's criticisms are like, no, Burton, Burton cared too much about things, and he's like, oh, it was boring.
I think I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but I listened to the director commentary for these movies a while ago, and don't waste your time with that, folks, for the Tim Burton ones, because all he basically says throughout two movies is, I don't remember much about this, but I remember I wanted the suit to be black. I didn't want it to look like Adam West's suit. I wanted it to be a black suit. And he basically says that for 2 hours over the whole movie, and it's just...
I want it to be black and dark and brooding.
Much like him. Let's see. Despite initial negative reactions from comic book fans prior to the film's release, Keaton's portrayal of Batman was generally praised. James Bernardelli called the film entertaining, with the highlight being the production design. However, he concluded the best thing that can be said about Batman is that it led to Batman Returns, which is a far superior effort. And we're going to talk about that in a little while, too. But Variety felt Jack Nicholson stole every scene, but still greeted the film with positive feedback. Roger Ebert was highly impressed with the production design, but claimed Batman is a triumph of design over story, style over substance, a great-looking movie with a plot that you can't care much about. He also called the film a depressing experience. On the syndicated television series Siskel and Ebert, his reviewing partner Gene Siskel disagreed, describing the film as having a refreshingly adult approach with performances, direction, and set design that draws you into a psychological world. Batman was released on various formats, including VHS, Laserdisc, DVD, and Blu-ray. In an unprecedented move at the time, it was made available to buy on VHS in the US on November 15th, less than 6 months after its theatrical release, at a suggested retail price of only $24.95, although most sellers sold it for less. It was released on DVD on March 25th, 1997, as a double-sided disc containing both widescreen and full-screen versions of the film, the 2005 Batman the Motion Picture Anthology, which includes the whole series from 89 to 97, included 2-disc special edition DVDs of the film and the 3 of its sequels. The anthology also released as a 4-disc Blu-ray set in 2009, with each film and its previous extras contained on a single disc. Other Blu-ray reissues include a 30th anniversary digibook with a 50-page booklet and a steel case edition. Both also include a digital copy. Most recently, the 25th anniversary Diamond Lux reissue contains the same discs as before, and on the second disc, a new 25-minute featurette, Batman, the Birth of the Modern Blockbuster. The film was also included in the Tim Burton Collection DVD and Blu-ray set in 2012, along with its sequel, Batman Returns. Batman was released on Ultra HD Blu-ray on June 4th, 2019.
Directed by Tim Burton. Screenplay by Sam Hamm and Warren Scarron. Story by Sam Hamm. Based on DC Comics Batman by Bob Kane and Bill Finger. Produced by John Peters and Peter Guber. Edited by Ray Lovejoy. Music by Danny Elfman. Cinematography by Roger Pratt. Production companies are Warner Brothers, Guber Peters Company, and Polygram Pictures. Distributed by Warner Brothers. The runtime is 126 minutes. Starring Jack Nicholson as Jack Napier and the Joker, Michael Keaton as Bruce Wayne and Batman, Kim Basinger as Vicki Vale, Robert Wool as Alexander Knox, Pat Hingle as Commissioner Gordon, Billy D. Williams as Harvey Dent, Michael Goff as Alfred Pennyworth, Tracy Walter as Bob the Goon, Lee Wallace as Mayor Borg, William Hootkins as Lieutenant Eckerd, Jerry Hall as Alicia, and Jack Palance as Carl Grissom.
Very nicely done.
I tried.
So we're gonna be doing our loose format recap again, where we recall the events in the movie. But I do have a plot summary here in case we get lost. But I just want to say, to start off, we're covering this because I'm kind of hyped up for the Flash movie that's coming out. And, Tim Burton. No, not Tim Burton. Michael Keaton's coming back for that movie to play Batman again. I have some theories about it. Most likely he's just going to be playing this version of Batman again, but I have a small theory that he might be playing a Thomas Wayne version instead, based on the source material for the movie and everything. But maybe I'm wrong. So we start off, I have to say, I really love the style of this movie. If I'm going to praise how great the world of Batman the Animated Series is, I have to praise how great this world is, because there's people in it, they're dressed and they drive cars and everything that looks like it's the 1930s, but then standing right next to them you also have 80s punk rock looking people. Yes. And it works. Like it doesn't look out of place. It makes Gotham feel like this timeless place that you have, like 1930.
Timeless place of the future, almost.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Like almost kind of like steampunk a little bit, but not. Yes. Yeah. It's a great world to see, and we start off with this lovely couple and their child, and they've just left the Monarch Theater, which, if you know anything about Batman, you know that can only lead to good things happening. And the father is mad at the son for looking at the map that he's holding. He says that we look like tourists. And then a prostitute tries to solicit the, 10-year-old son or whatever.
Yes.
And the mother and father pull him down this totally not auspicious alley. Definitely not crime alley or anything.
I don't think it's like, I'm like, even if you didn't know where you're going, why are you pulling your child down an alley like that? Like, I'd be like, oh, that's not where we want to go, other way.
Yeah. But they end up being confronted by a homeless person who asks them for $1, and they run past him. And around the corner, they get attacked by the homeless person's friend, who puts a gun to their face, robs them, puts the gun specifically in the kid's face, and the two homeless men run away together to split up the money that they've made off of the family. And we see, even in 1989, a terrible-looking drawn Batman overlooking the city and hears all this happen. He doesn't stop the crime from happening, but he does beat up the criminals afterwards, and
yes,
it's an iconic scene though. Like, the guy saying, "What are you?" and him saying, "I'm Batman." Like that they do it in every movie since then. Every actor that's ever played Batman. Actually, I don't know if Robert Pattinson has an "I'm Batman" line in his movie. I can't remember right now, but every other actor has had that line at some point in one of their movies. And he tells them he's not going to kill them because he wants them to talk about, like, tell the other criminal scum of the city that he's there. Which is just getting it out of the way. This is a Batman that kills people. Like, Batman's not supposed to kill people, but this is totally...
This is like dark Batman.
Yeah, like he uses guns and
Batman
missiles.
murdering.
Yeah. I remember people had a lot of backlash for Ben Affleck's Batman when that came out, because he was killing people. I think, mind you, I don't want comic book Batman to kill people, because that's the sort... And I don't think Batman should kill people. But if you're going to have a departure, like... and
here's the thing, if we're going with, like, Batman is, like, a dark vigilante justice, I could see him killing people.
Yeah.
Like, he's not Superman.
No.
Like, he's Batman.
Well, actually, I feel, honestly, this is funny, when Man of Steel came out, and everyone had a problem with Superman killing Zod in that, when the next one coming out was Batman versus Superman, I assumed the conflict was going to be that Superman killed Zod, and Batman was going to have a problem with that. Like, no, you shouldn't kill people, you should find another way to stop them. Like, you should be better than that. That's not what the conflict was at all. Batman kills numerous people in that movie. But like, I actually think in the comic book versions and my ideal versions of them, I'm okay with Superman not just rampantly killing people, but if he faces someone like a Zod or Mongol or one of his other villains that's just ultra powerful, I'm okay with him killing them. But I don't think Batman should kill, like, in an ideal version. Could he be responsible for someone's death? Sure. Like, inadvertently causing it? Fine. But, just addressing it right, this is a Batman that kills people, and it still works, it's fine, it's a dark movie and everything like that. We meet Alexander Knox, who's not a comic book character, but should be, because he's a very interesting character. Someone who I completely identify with, someone who makes bad jokes all the time, and
they're all sexual jokes?
Yeah, sexually inappropriate comments to his coworkers. I totally identify with Alexander Knox. That's who I would be if I was in this universe. And he meets Vicki Vale, who...
Would I be Vicki Vale?
Yeah, you could be Vicki Vale, that's okay. Fine. Who, her story's changed a little bit in this. She's normally just a reporter. Here she's a photographer who takes photos. Something that is very interesting that I'm wondering which writer put this in there was that she just got back from taking photos in Corto Maltese, which is a fake DC Universe island in off the coast of America. It's like an independent country, but it's like Latin, like it's not in South America. It's still in North America, like region, but it's Hispanic population and everything like that. But it comes from The Dark Knight Returns. There's a nuke that gets dropped in Corto Maltese at a certain point, if I'm remembering correctly, and it actually causes a power outage in Gotham City. So it's relatively close to America's landmass, but like the EMP blast from it causes a power outage in Gotham City. But so it's just a little comic book shout out there that they had in there that she comes back from Corto Maltese, and she's interested in the Batman character. Knox is writing about him, and everyone thinks that he's crazy, including the cops and his fellow reporters.
Like, yeah, you know anything about the Batman?
Yeah, I like bats. It's like
the bats.
Yeah, it's a little weird, but okay, all right, whatever. And he's just taken with her because she's Kim Basinger, so he's gonna do whatever she has to. And she says to him, "Oh, we should ask Commissioner Gordon at Wayne's functioning that he's having at Wayne Manor tonight." And Knox is like, "Oh, I'm not invited to it," and she pulls out 2 invitations that she has.
He's like, "All right, let's go."
Which I have to say, for her just moving to Gotham City, this movie doesn't establish time very well, but she has this super nice apartment, which, Gotham's supposed to be akin to New York City. That's a really nice apartment for someone who's a newspaper photographer.
Just like...
Granted, it's the 80s, but things were still expensive in the 80s in New York.
And then she has 2 tickets to this party already.
And she's also in the phone book, because the Joker uses the phone book to look her up later. But anyway, maybe she flew to Corto Maltese, but has lived in Gotham previously. And the movie
that makes sense.
The movie just didn't say it. But we then cut to Jack Napier, and he's having a meeting with his boss, Carl Grissom. And Grissom is worried that the cops are onto him because Harvey Dent, played by the coolest cat in the galaxy, Lando Calrissian, has there's actually a second Star Wars character in this. Do you know who it is? Or
no.
All right, well, we'll get to it in a moment.
Okay.
But So Harvey Dent has announced he's going to be cracking down on the crime bosses in Gotham, and Carl Grissom is worried that they're going to raid excess chemicals. So he sends his number one guy, Jack Napier, to go clean it out. Jack's playing with some cards, and he's already wearing a purple suit, so, if we know he's going to be the Joker at some point.
Yep.
And we get to see that Napier is having an affair with Carl Grissom's girlfriend, which Grissom knows about. And he sends Jack to Excess Chemicals to clean it out. And then when Jack leaves, he picks up the phone and calls Lieutenant Eckhart, who is the second Star Wars character.
Okay.
He was Porkins.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, which I saw... Actually, let me see. If you look at photos of him before he passed away, he actually looks better in 2005 than he does here in 89.
Yes.
Which is interesting. But, so Jack's set up to be found by the cops at Excess Chemicals. He realizes it. Cops show up. Eckhart tells the cops to shoot to kill, because they're just going to take him out. And
then the commissioner, who is at the party, I heard you were doing this. Nobody shoot him.
Yeah, I forgot. I forgot about the party scene.
Yes.
We have the party scene, which is our introduction to Bruce Wayne in this movie, which I love. The dynamic that they show us with Bruce and Alfred right from the start. Like, Bruce puts a pen into one of the plants, and Alfred picks it, and then he goes and puts his empty glass on a table, and Alfred scoops that up too. Like, Alfred's been doing this for him his entire life. Like, just falling around, cleaning up all of his messes.
But the best part is that, I love when there's always a character that has to go, hi, do you know who Bruce Wayne is? Like, who's Bruce Wayne? And they always ask Bruce Wayne that question. Yeah. Like, do you know who Bruce Wayne... Do you know who Jason is?
That's something that is interesting, because we do know... if I ran into Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or Warren Buffett, I know what they look like. And, we knew who Bill Gates was, 20 years ago. And, you knew who billionaires were. Like, if you ran... I guess a good example, because 89, there weren't as many billionaires as there are now. But if you ran into Ted Turner in 1989, you knew who Ted Turner was. But I think of her as,
I'm you're a photojournalist working in this massive city. You know what Bruce Wayne looks like.
Yeah.
And you could easily find a picture of him before going to know what he looks like.
I get that he's supposed to be a recluse and everything like that, but people know who he is. Or at least they should. And I guess we could address it, too. While Michael Keaton gives a great performance, he's not classically handsome. He's not what Bruce Wayne should look like. Ben Affleck's much more like it. Robert Pattinson, Christian Bale, Val Kilmer, even George Clooney, they have the look of Bruce Wayne. But he does give a great performance, and he's still, I guess if you're going to have him be a recluse and, I don't know, it's fine. It's fine.
I just think it's funny it happens in every single,
when it's
Batman,
that person.
we're restarting a new Batman,
Yeah. But that's something, did you see Pattinson's The Batman?
I have not.
Okay, that's something that, because he's a recluse in that, too. He lives in Wayne Tower in that version. There's an apartment building in it that he lives in and everything, which actually kind of makes sense, too, because that's where... they don't have a Batcave especially, but it's in the basement of Wayne Tower is where his Batcave is. But that, in one scene, he goes to this funeral. A prominent Gotham character gets killed, and he goes to the funeral to attend to it. And all the media and everything are like, "Oh my God, it's Bruce Wayne!" It's such a big deal that Bruce Wayne has come out of hiding in his tower and everything like that. But they immediately know who he is, and they're all like, "Oh, take it." And it's actually kind of a cool scene because the flash photography in it bothers him, and he puts on sunglasses because he sleeps during the day, which is something that this movie alludes to slightly too later on. But he puts on his sunglasses because the flash the sun's bothering him, but also the flash photography is bothering him because his eyes have adjusted to being up at night rather than being up during the day. But getting back into this movie, Knox and Vale run into Bruce Wayne in his armory, his little display armory of different cultures from around the world. Knox makes a couple of bad jokes and then asks Wayne for a grant, and Wayne he tells Alfred to give him a grant before he leaves. But yeah, Alfred tells him, "Oh, Commissioner Gordon had to leave rather unexpectedly, sir." And he's like, "Oh, okay." And he's about to leave, and Alfred's like, "I think you want to go that way, sir," alluding to go down to the Batcave. And he's like, "Yep, thanks, Alfred." And he tells him to give Knox a grant before he leaves. And then we see Wayne watching Commissioner Gordon being talked to by another cop, and like finds out everything that Napier's raiding excess chemicals, and Eckhart's the cop that's going to be there. And ultimately, it leads, like you were saying, Commissioner Gordon showing up at excess chemicals and telling the other cops not to kill Napier. Like, he doesn't care what Eckhart said, blah, blah, blah. And then Batman shows up and causes a whole ruckus to break out there.
Oh, of course.
Which I love when Jack Napier's running around and he's just doing that Hollywood thing of, I'm going to throw random switches and hit buttons on this board to screw things up at this chemical company.
Yes.
And things just start randomly exploding.
And then, see, when they do that sort of thing, I'm like, so we're just going to blow the whole plant up with us inside. Got it.
Yeah. He runs to the top and gets confronted by Batman because he's about to shoot Grissom. He sees that his man Bob has a gun to Gordon's head. And Batman has to let Napier go because, you know, he doesn't want Gordon to get shot. And Bob runs away. And then Batman disappears, and Napier pulls out his gun and shoots Eckhart, killing him. And then Batman shows back up, kicks him. He falls over the railing, is dangling from it, and Batman tries to pull him back up, but drops him. Mm-hmm. And he falls into a vat of chemicals, to which Gordon's very upset. He's like, damn it, we almost had him. And then Batman escapes, and the scene then cuts to a very fake-looking hand coming out of water, and it shows that his skin has already been bleached white. And then, well, I guess I could just cut to when he's at his plastic surgeon's office. Yeah. I know there's something in between. I think, trying to remember, I think it's a Vicki Vale and Bruce Wayne. Oh yeah, it is the Vicki Vale Bruce Wayne scene. They go on a date together at Wayne Manor. He gets her drunk and then has sex with her, which he doesn't drink, so he took total advantage of her. But I do love their little scene in the dining hall where they're across from each other at that giant table. Yeah. And she says, do you like eating in here? And he's like, actually, I don't think I've ever been in this room before. That's something, Wayne Manor in this movie, I forget the actual palace. It's some palace in England that they used for the exterior shots. But it's used in a lot of movies. It was used in the X-Men movies for Professor X's manor and everything like that. But it's, oddly enough, it's very popular. It was used in Smallville for Lex Luthor's manor. And the reason that it's so popular and used for so many things is because from all the different four sides of the manor, when you're looking at it, it has a different design from all four sides.
Oh, that makes sense.
So if you're on the north side looking at it, it might look like a castle. If you're on the south side, it looks like a giant... Like, it just has a different exterior design on all four sides of this palace that's in England. I forget the name of it. I should have looked it up. Sense. But it gets used a lot in a lot of different Hollywood movies. I think it was even used in Batman Begins, if I'm not mistaken. But so, they have their little date, and Batman takes sexual advantage of Vicki Vale. And then, this is what I was talking about, alluding to him having problems, that he should sleep during the day and be up at night. He does some weird exercise where he's hanging upside down like a bat. Like he leaves her in bed and she sees him doing that. And then she wakes up the next morning and he's asleep on the couch. Because it's the daytime now, and so he's sleeping. She wakes him up and says, hey, I had a lot of fun. We should do this again. And he's like, oh, yeah, sure. Oh, actually, I'm going out of town. Yeah, I'll call you when I get back.
Such a move.
And she says to Alfred, oh, well, I'll see you when you guys get back. And Alfred's like, we're not going anywhere. What are you talking about?
Alfred.
Yeah.
Alfred, you just agree.
Yeah, he's not being a wingman at this moment. But also, that could have just been her misunderstanding. Maybe Bruce had to go somewhere, but Alfred was staying. But, whatever. And he was using the British royal we, referring to just himself. But so, then we cut to Napier at his plastic surgeon's place, which I think the guy's supposed to be a Nazi. He's definitely German, but I believe he's supposed to also be a Nazi. I think
so. That's the vibe I got.
And he says, oh, I don't have the best tools to work with. Which this scene always creeped me out as a kid. And it's still very effectively done because we don't see Joker. He smashes the light and everything like that. He sees himself. It's a good performance in this scene from Jack Nicholson, in my opinion. Like he does the mirror, and like
it's a little creepy.
When he sees himself, he cracks up laughing hysterically and just leaves. Surprisingly, not killing the doctor. You would expect that from the Joker, but he doesn't. And then he ends up confronting his old boss, Grissom. and we get the introduction to the Joker proper, and he kills Grissom, and he's very upset that Grissom set a bump over a woman! A woman! And immediately, something that I never noticed until watching it this time was how quickly his goons are like, all right, theming. Like, we're going to have the Joker's face on all of our jackets. Everything that we have is either going to be purple, red, or green.
And
those
they're
are your
all
colors.
ready to, like, go and be like, yeah, let's be happy, crazy people.
Yeah. Like, that's something that I never noticed before watching this movie. Like, that's what I mean when I say, like, it doesn't really establish how much time passes in this movie. Because, like, it's like, what, the next day they have these Joker jackets ready and everything? Like,
let's go.
And they build him a gun that has a boxing glove at the end of it, so when he's watching TV, if he gets mad at it, he can punch the TV out with his boxing glove.
It's so absurdist.
Yeah.
This movie reaches at a, like, absurdist level at times, where I'm like, oh...
Yeah.
Suspend all disbelief.
But so, Vale, having been somewhat rejected by Wayne after sleeping with him and everything, starts to investigate him. She's interested in why he's the way he is. Ultimately finding out, with Knox helping her, that his parents were killed in front of him and everything, yes. And that's what's messed him up. She was following him around, saw he went to a spot and put down 2 roses, which is just an iconic Batman thing. He does that every year on the anniversary of his parents' death. They all end up converging on City Hall, where another crime boss is... I forgot to mention that Joker has a crime boss scene with a bunch of different bosses where he electrocutes one guy to death, but that's not really that important.
No, not important at all.
And they end up converging on City Hall, where another crime boss, in a power play move, has tried to take over Grissom's holdings. He said that Grissom's gone away and left him in charge, and the Joker shows up, and which, again, he has his goons dressed as mimes, because I guess all clown things, like, they're clowns, they're mimes.
It's so crazy. Like, especially, this movie's so dark, and then all of a sudden it's like the Joker just comes, and everything to do with him is very, like, bright-colored.
Yeah.
Comparatively. And then, like, all the goons, too, you're right, they're just, like... ready to go.
Mm-hmm. But he kills that other mob boss that was trying to take over, and has a brief confrontation, a stare-off with Bruce Wayne, where they stare at each other. Which I don't think, until the end of this movie, it's kind of interesting. Do you think he knows that he killed the Waynes?
I don't think he knows.
Is it just that he killed 2 people in an alley? It's weird, because at the end of the movie, like, Batman says to him, "You killed my parents," and he says, "Hey, I was just a kid when I killed your parents." So it's almost like he already knows that Batman's Bruce Wayne and everything like that. It's weird.
I don't know.
Anyway, they kind of stare at each other for a moment, and that's when Batman realizes that Jack Napier's still alive, and starts investigating him. And then Jack becomes obsessed with Vicki Vale. Well, Joker becomes obsessed with Vicki Vale, and her photography and everything like that. And decides, oh, she shouldn't be with Bruce Wayne. She should be with me. And he sets up this elaborate date that she's going to go on Bruce Wayne with at this museum, which serves food and drinks.
Very odd.
It's a weird-looking designed museum, too, because everything's concrete and steel. But then, like, they have the paintings. Like, it kind of makes the art stand out. I kind of like the design of it, because everything...
Yeah, he shows up and gasses everybody in the place, except Vicki, because he sent her a little gift of a mask.
Yeah.
And then they're defacing the museum, and then Batman rescues her.
Yeah, to Prince's music, they're defacing the museum. Which, that's something...
The random dance scene got me.
Oh, like the little guy that was dancing when he went up to the ballerinas? Yeah. Oh, and the Joker, too? Yeah. Like, listen, that's something I think, I mentioned in the beginning how Tim Burton had a problem with putting Prince's music in it, like he felt it was out of place and whatever. I think, much like Burton's design of Gotham, that it's like this classic forever city that, like, is passed in, Prince's music is the same way. Like, you know, this came out in 89, it's been almost 40 years, and people still listen to Prince's music.
I don't think it's Prince's music that was out of place. I think it was the dancing and the sequence itself that felt off.
That's something...
Because it stands out as like what are we doing here?
Well, that's something about, that I have in my overall score, is that Jack Nicholson's Joker was iconic, and I never thought anyone would be better at it in live action. And then we got Heath Ledger, which is such a different take on the Joker, but... it's also that, like, it's like, oh my god, that works so well too. And then we have Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, and we have Jared Leto's Joker too, but we're not going to talk about that one.
That one doesn't exist.
Yeah, but but like it's like, oh, we've had all these different takes. Like a lot of people like to compare Joaquin Phoenix's and Heath Ledger's Joker. They say like they're very similar, but they're not. Like if you really look at it, they're very different Jokers. But I always thought that Jack Nicholson brings a silly Joker performance to this. Not menacing, not creepy. He makes bad jokes all the time.
But I think, remember how I just said that? I felt like this was very absurdist at points. Yeah. I think that's what he adds to it.
Yeah.
And, like, really, you have a dark, gritty movie that has these weird, like, absurdist, like, interludes like this. And, like, this is one of those things where I'm like, no, it did feel out of place, but not because of the music. Because of what was going on in that moment. It was just like, okay, why?
Yeah.
Like...
I think it's harkening back to like that sort of 1950s, 60s silly Joker, like 70s silly Joker written type of joke, not the serious murderous kind. Like he is also a murderer and everything like that, but like one of the backstories evidently on Heath Ledger's Joker was that he was a Black Ops soldier that had been captured and tortured and like abandoned by like his team and stuff like that, and that's kind of what broke him mentally. That's why he's so familiar with all different types of weapons to use and everything like that. We see Joaquin Phoenix's Joker as like this mentally ill, tortured man who has a breaking point. Like he's already predisposed. Have you ever seen Joker or no?
No, but I've seen parts of it.
That's a very interesting movie. I've told people I really enjoyed that movie, and I've told people to watch it. And some people have come back and been like, "That's a fantastic movie," and other people have told me like, "Why do you like this movie, you creep?" And I'm like, that's interesting. That those are the two reactions I have from people when I tell them to watch it. But anyway, getting back into this, Joker gasses everyone, tries to take Vicki Vale with him. Batman shows up, saves her, and then we get to see what I still think is probably the coolest Batmobile design. Like, there's been a lot of cool Batmobiles, but the '89 one's just iconic. It's a Corvette, but redone to be a Batman car. And they have a little chase scene. Batman shows off some of his gadgets. Then they have an awkward scene where Batman asks Vicki Vale how much she weighs, and she lies and says 108 pounds, which clearly she doesn't weigh that. But he then fights some Joker goons. She gets a photo of his face with the mask off. He beats up the Joker goons, gets back in the Batmobile, takes her back to the Batcave. And I guess we should mention, because we didn't mention at this point, the Joker poisons stuff in Gotham, and people are dying from it.
Yeah, and like when he takes her back to the cave, Batman has all the info. Yeah, he's been doing research, has all the info for her to bring back to the publish.
It's not one product that's going to do it, but a combination. Like hairspray won't do it alone, but hairspray and lipstick or baby powder, like mixed together, causes the people to die from the Smilex chemical that the Joker has invented. Which that was something too when he was looking at Jack Napier's profile. It said like, he's insane, blah blah blah, but he shows he's like a genius in chemistry and stuff like that. So he figured out how to poison all these different chemicals or products, and people using them in combination, they've been dying from it. Which I do love that they show the news anchors like without makeup or hairspray or deodorant on or anything, and they just look horrible there, like talking about what is the Joker poisoned. Vicki Vale wakes up the next morning in her bed. Batman has knocked her out. Presumably he has sex with her again, I guess, because that's his thing. He likes getting her drunk or knocking her out. And a small detail that I also never noticed, when she wakes up in her bed and she's passed out, the camera's above her, and her feet are dirty. And I was like, I like that detail because they show her take off her high heel shoes to run around Gotham City when they're trying to escape the Joker. So her feet would still be dirty. And I was like, that might have been a small detail that they could have just missed. But no, they caught it, and they were like, no, your feet have to be dirty because you were running around the streets of Gotham. She calls Knox and tells him, she has a list of, she doesn't say where she got it from. She's not like, oh, Batman figured it out. But she tells him she knows, like, what products are poisoned and everything like that. And then ultimately it leads to the Joker going on television. The mayor's having a televised, also on the radio press conference where he's announcing that they're canceling Gotham's 200-year celebration.
Yes. The
Joker hijacks the fee and says, no, the celebration's going on, and I'll be dumping, I forget whether he says $20 or $200 million.
Something like that.
But some ridiculous amount of money. Which, in the movie, I would have thought this would have been great, but it's not in there. He says to Vicki Vale when he's talking to her in the museum that he wants his face on the $1 bill. It would have been great if the money that he dumped had his face on it. If like we had a shot that we said like it was like
Yes.
the whole like all these people showed up to get the money and he's going to kill them and it wasn't even real money to begin with. That would have been great, but no, it's real money that he's dumping out and everything. He has a parade going with his balloons that are dumping poisonous gas, and Batman shows up with the Batwing, which also looks cool, but man, you the CGI on it.
No,
like,
yeah, it's not good CGI
no,
at all.
It flies super slow, like when it's flying towards Gotham and everything like that. Like we've come a long way as far as CGI goes, technology. Although I do think that shot of it flying up and being into the moon and creating the bat symbol, that's still pretty cool. Batman gets the balloons. Knox has a hero moment where he's trying to save people by beating up Joker goons so that they don't get poisoned. Which originally, in the original script, he was supposed to die in this scene, but the people behind the movie enjoyed Robert Wuhl's performance so much that they give him a scene at the end to show that he didn't die.
Excellent.
The Joker pulls out a comically large Magnum gun and is able to shoot down the Batwing with it for some reason. It's like
absurdist.
Yeah,
I already told you.
Like it's not like it shoots rockets or anything. Like it's just shooting a bullet, but it has a very long barrel and it brings down the Batwing. And Batman crashes. Seemingly, they don't see the body in the cockpit, but Joker kidnaps Vicki Vale. And he takes her to the Gotham Cathedral, which is like the only joke that he makes in the movie that's kind of funny. He tells his guys to be there in 5 minutes, and then he looks at how big the cathedral is, and he says, better make it 10. And starts taking Vale with him up to the top of the cathedral. Batman comes out of the burning wreckage of the Batwing and is following them. And it leads to a culmination at the top of the cathedral, where the Joker uses his acid flower to make the bell at the top of the bell tower fall down and break the steps so that none of the cops can follow up. And then Batman fights a bunch of Joker goons, which the one guy, I forgot to put his name in here, but he's the big black guy that Batman fights that is actually beating him up, and then Batman murders him by throwing him down the cathedral. He was the stunt coordinator for the movie.
Okay.
He's also an actor. I forget, Clive something. I forget his name now. He was also a professional wrestler previously. He's still a stunt coordinator for movies. He's done other things too. He's English. And basically, he was a stunt coordinator for the Harry Potter movies, a lot of the James Bond movies. Basically, if it was a movie that was shot in England, he was the stunt choreographer for it, or coordinator, or whatever the position was. But Batman and Joker have their confrontation. They're both very beat up. Joker says that Batman created him. Batman says that you created me, blah, blah, blah. And then Batman throws Joker basically over the edge of the cathedral, but Joker was on the ledge, pulls Batman and Vicki Vale over, and they're hanging off the edge. And then the helicopter shows up to take the Joker away. Batman ties the Joker's leg to one of the stone gargoyles, and the Joker, instead of just letting go of the ladder, breaks the stone gargoyle, ending up in him falling to his death. Batman and Vicki also fall, but Batman shoots his grappling gun, saving them both. Commissioner Gordon is having a press conference, and he tells the people, Batman sent me a letter saying, the scum of crime, blah, 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 blah. But if you ever need me...
let me know.
Yeah, let me know. And they're like, how are we supposed to let him know? And he goes, he gave us a signal. And then they
reveal the bat signal.
They light up the bat signal. Vicki Vale walks away from the press conference, and Knox is like, hey, where are you going? And she's like, I'm going to get some billionaire dick. I'm not a reporter anymore. I'm gonna lock down Wayne. I don't need this life anymore.
See ya. Woman.
Yeah. And she gets into the car with Alfred, and he's like, oh, miss, Mr. Wayne told me to tell you he'll be a little late. And she says, I expected that, or whatever. And the movie goes into Danny Elfman's beautiful Batman score, panning up these buildings, and then we see the bat signal, and we see Batman stand up and ding, ding, ding. That's, and that's the end of the movie. Were there any details that I left out that you wanted to discuss?
No, I'm impressed with you. That's why I kept letting you go. I was like, keep going.
Okay. There honestly was a point in my life where not only could I have recited this movie every line, but I could have done the sound effects too. Because there are certain sound effects, like when the cops confront Napier's gang and like the gunshots. Mm-hmm. I've heard that in other movies, and I've been like, that's. And the thing is that it's not from this movie. It's just like a Warner Brothers general gunshot recording. Mm-hmm. But the specific sounds that it made, I've heard in other movies, even movies that came out before this. But I'm like, that's the Batman gunshots. Like
the gunshots always make me. The gunshots make me laugh in this movie. They're
ping,
very
ping. Yeah. But yeah,
again, very absurdist.
There was a point in my life where I could have said every line of this movie word for word in order and stuff. Like, I was obsessed with this as a kid. Should I just dive into my overall score because I talk about that?
Yeah, go right ahead.
So I wrote down, Batman was one of those movies that I watched over and over again during my childhood. In fact, I think a younger version of myself could do a scene-by-scene recap, knowing every line and every sound effect from the film. It was my introduction to Batman as a character, and would be my favorite live-action Batman movie until the Nolan films. There's so much that is good about this movie. The sets look amazing, the musical score is iconic, the costumes and makeup jobs are fantastic, and the story itself is great. Now, nearly 40 years later, are some of the shots and special effects dated? Absolutely, but for the most part the film holds up. I've yet to discuss the actors' portrayals in this, and that's because I have mixed feelings about it. Honestly, I think all the side characters are fantastic, with Michael Gough's Alfred being at the top of the list. Personally, my second favorite is a tie between Robert Wuhl's Alexander Knox and William Hopkins Eckhart. While minor roles, I think both these actors did a fantastic job with what they were given. Now, for the big three. Kim Basinger's Vicki Vale doesn't have much to her. She's more of a plot device than a character, but that's just how women's roles were written back then, both in movies and comics for the most part. She did do a good job with the limited material, but that's because she's a good actress, and not because it was a good part. A lesser actress, and the role would have stunk. And if you don't believe me, watch Batman Begins with Katie Holmes, because she falls victim to that as well. Michael Keaton's Batman is iconic. I'm hyped to see him return to the role in the Flash movie, and I'll be interested to see what they do with the character. His Bruce Wayne, though, leaves me wanting more. You see, for me, there's supposed to be two Bruce Waynes. The real brooding Bruce, which Keaton does a fairly good job at portraying, but there are moments where the character becomes more comical than angry. The you want to get nuts scene comes to mind. And secondly, and perhaps this is a lack of material in the script, or a lack of direction from Burton, but there's no charming billionaire playboy Bruce Wayne in the film. The closest we get to that is a scene where Wayne gets Vicki Vale drunk and has sex with her. And by 2023 standards, not cool, man. I know you're damaged from seeing your parents murdered in front of you, but I find it hard to believe that Alfred would raise you to behave like this. In case I forgot... It's true. In case I forgot...
You didn't forget that part?
No. Oh yeah, I love the Alfred and Bruce relationship in it. But I'm going on for far too long, so let's discuss Jack Nicholson's Joker. For the time period, he nailed it. There probably wasn't a better choice or a bigger star for the role, and he did a great job. I did forget to mention in our recording that Robin Williams was offered the role too, but that was just to get Jack Nicholson into it, and then Robin Williams had a real problem with Warner Brothers after that. Look it up, if you folks. His jokes aren't funny, but that's the point. The Joker is a psychopath, and his jokes shouldn't make you laugh. If they do, seek help. And honestly, until Heath Ledger's performance, I never thought we'd get a better live-action Joker. Despite my personal dislike of most of Tim Burton's filmography, he did a great job with this movie. But don't waste your time listening to the director's commentary because it's not worth it. All in all, I'm giving Batman an 8 out of 10. It should probably only be a 7, but it gets a bonus point for me because I'm a Batman nerd.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
As you can see, Jason's a Batman nerd and knows way more than I do and has way more to say, but that often happens with a lot of the stuff we talk about, so that's not new.
Well, we're going to listen, we got these 2 Batman recordings. Maybe there'll be something in between after the Batman recordings, but we're going to be diving into something pretty soon that the fans have long been awaiting.
I know.
That you're a much bigger nerd on than I am. So.
Accurate.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. I think we're both nerds on a lot of things we watch. But, no, I I was not as obsessed with this as you were, but I do remember watching this a few times as a kid. I think I remember more so watching Batman Returns as a kid, which is interesting because that one's definitely darker and probably also not kid-friendly, so don't know why I remember that so clearly, but I do like this film a lot. I love Nicholson's portrayal of the Joker. I do love Keaton as Batman, which I didn't remember liking him as Batman that much, but again, I wasn't watching this every day like someone apparently.
Sometimes multiple times a day.
Yeah. But no, I like this movie a lot. But I gave it a 7 as well.
Okay.
It's good. Not the best Batman, but it's good Batman.
Yeah. And something too was that this movie, much like Alan Moore's Killing Joke and Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns, which they took some loose material from it to make this movie. More so Alan Moore than Frank Miller's stuff. But it was a revitalization of Batman. Not that Batman fans weren't still Batman fans. They were. But in the general pop culture, when people thought of Batman, they thought of Adam West's. Mm-hmm. They thought of, sometimes you just can't get rid of a bomb. Like bad puns and jokes and stuff like. And, Adam West is a very handsome man, and for the 60s he was in good shape. But that suit doesn't look good. It wouldn't look good on anyone. You could put, who's a guy that I've made reference to a lot in the, what's his name? Aquaman, Khal Drogo, Jason Momoa.
Yeah.
You could put him in the Adam West suit and it wouldn't look good.
No,
it's just not a well-designed suit and everything. But that was in the pop culture mind what Batman was. Everyone thought bad jokes and stuff like that. And this movie came out and changed people's opinions of Batman. And, we kind of go back to that Adam West stuff with the George Clooney version. But
this is definitely, what I think of, what I've always thought of Batman being. A little bit on the darker, broodier,
Yeah.
Batman is a little scary, but Bruce Wayne can go take me to the bedroom anytime he wants.
You're the Vicki Vale, huh?
Bruce Wayne wants to get me drunk and take me.
That's something about this movie that, as a Batman fan, kind of annoyed me a lot, and I had fears when the Joker movie came out and the storyline with that. So many people, I spent so many years, because I guess people didn't have an idea about continuity and multiverses and stuff like that, like the general population. So many people, when I would talk about Batman with them, and I'd talk about Joe Chill, they were like, who the hell's Joe Chill? And I'm like, he's the guy that killed the Waynes. And they're like, no, the Joker killed the Waynes. And I'm like, oh, God, Batman, that 89 movie strikes again. I'm like, no, that was just in that movie that the Joker kills the Waynes. In the comics, it's different, blah, blah. And when Joaquin Phoenix's Joker movie came out, that movie has a plot. You never get the full answer, but it's probably yes, that Thomas Wayne is Joaquin Phoenix's Joker's father. And him and Bruce are half-brothers. You never get a full confirmation of that, but the movie heavily implies it. Because also, in that movie, they have it... I can't remember his character's name in that right now. It'll come to me after we're done recording. But his mother's in the movie. She's also mentally ill, but she was a former Wayne employee. She was his personal secretary and stuff like that. And she had a love affair with Wayne, which might have resulted in him. But at the same time, she's also mentally ill. So it's did she make this up? Because he confronts Wayne about it in the movie. He's like, oh, you're my dad and stuff like that. He's like, listen, your mother was a sick woman and you're clearly sick too. I'm not your father, blah, blah, blah. But then when I think he burns down her apartment in one scene and you see this photograph of the two of them together, Wayne and the mother. And it says, all my love, Thomas, on it. And so it's oh, did something happen there? But, what was going on? But that was something that I was worried. I'm like, oh, now people are going to be walking around thinking Batman and the Joker are brothers. I was like, but that didn't happen because today's audience has more of an understanding of continuity and multiverses, and that this movie it's not the same thing as the comic and blah, blah, blah. So, but yeah, with all that being said, anything else you want to add? Or?
No, okay. Good.
This has been the Once Again Podcast. Any questions, comments, or critiques can be addressed to our email at onceagainpod@gmail.com. Follow us on our social media accounts, Once Again Pod, all one word, on Twitter and Instagram. If you'd like to contribute to the podcast, we have several tiers available on patreon.com/onceagainpod. As always, a like, follow, or share would be greatly appreciated. Thank you and have a wonderful day. And remember, we will entertain you. We will always entertain you.